homemade sausage meat wrapped up in a rich, buttery pastry. No more of an introduction needed. My name's Philip, thanks for tuning in. Let's get cooking. Straight in with 500 grams or 3 cups of all-purpose white flour. This one's got a protein content of 11.5%. Follow up with 7 grams or roughly 1 teaspoon of sea salt, and then in with 325 grams or 3 sticks of unsalted cold diced butter. Rub this together until the butter and flour is incorporated, but you can still see flecks of butter within the dough. This is going to take a couple of minutes or so. The pastry will be rolled tightly around the sausage filling, and when it's baked you end up with this rich flaky pastry which is strong enough to support the sausage filling, but the amount of butter makes it beautifully rich. I've weighed out 250 grams or 1 cup of fridge temperature water. I'm going to use enough of this to bring the pastry together into a firm dough. Now, describing texture can be a bit tricky as we've all got different perceptions on how firm, soft or sticky dough actually feels. So try to use the visual representation in the video to gauge the texture of your pastry. I've added about half of the water, but depending on how thirsty your flour is, you may use a little bit more or a little bit less. Don't stress about the quantity of the water, but try to focus on achieving the right texture. Cover the dough with a bag and pop it for a rest in the fridge for about 30 minutes. This will give the flour a chance to hydrate while we work on the filling. Now you can use your favourite shop bought sausages for this, but I'm going to make my own sausage mix from scratch. I'm using 1 kilo, that's 2.2 pounds of minced pork. It's a 50-50 mix of pork shoulder and pork belly. 100 grams or 2/3 of a cup of fine dried breadcrumbs, and I've soaked these in 200 grams or 1 cup of milk for 30 minutes in the fridge. A big handful of chopped parsley, 10 grams or 1 heaped teaspoon of sea salt, 5 grams or 1 teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper. Work the ingredients together by squeezing it through your hands. Everything needs to be well distributed, but we're also working on building a sticky texture that holds together. Now, depending on how hard you work this, it's going to take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes to achieve the right texture. If the mix feels a little dry, add a splash of water until the sausage meat easily squeezes between your fingers. Again, try to get a good visual reference for the texture. For those of you who have been following my sausage making videos, this is a great little recipe to use up any leftover mix that's been left behind in the barrel of the sausage stuffing machine. I used half the filling and half the dough, and it made 2 giant sausage rolls. The rest of the dough freezes really well and works great on pies. Any leftover meat? Well, that can be shaped into breakfast burgers or used as a stuffing or even meatballs. When you finish your mix, tightly cover it with cling film, pushing out any air, and pop it in the fridge while we roll out the dough. Now you're going to need some flour here, as this dough can tend to be quite sticky. Roll the dough out into a rectangle. Don't worry too much about the thickness or the size, just make sure it's not too big to handle. Now at this stage I like to grate over some frozen butter. This was about 60 grams or half a stick. Right, fold the 2 ends of the dough into the centre and then fold those 2 pieces together to make 4 layers. Roll the dough out into another rectangle and repeat the same folds. Cover it and pop it in the fridge for about 20 minutes. You'll then remove the dough from the fridge and repeat this step 2 more times. So in total you'll have rolled and folded this dough 4 times. So here's my dough, it's been folded 4 times, and then I rested it for about 15 minutes covered in the fridge just to firm up a little. I'm going to divide this into 2, half of it I'll use now and the other half I'll just pop in the freezer and use for pies another time. So this piece of dough I'm going to roll out into a rectangle, and then I'm going to judge the amount of filling that I'll need. The thickness of the final pastry is also down to personal preference, but I like mine about 3 or 4 millimeters thick. Make sure the filling is evenly distributed, roll it up and seal the end with beaten egg. I like to seal the 2 pieces of pastry together, which leaves a flap, and then I crimp that down with a fork. Pop it on some non-stick oven paper, egg wash it really well, and then bake it in a preheated oven at 220 degrees Celsius or 425 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 to 25 minutes. But keep an eye on it, and the sausage rolls are ready when the pastry is nice and golden. Right, let's give this a whirl. Oh wow. That's so good. Rich, buttery, flaky pastry with really moist sausage meat. What more can I say? A marriage made in heaven. Well, that's all I've got for you today. A huge thank you for watching. I'll see you again very soon. Stay tuned.